Ari Petronelli. I'm your host, usually. I'm with my two coworkers, Marcus Espinoza and Jose G. Hernandez.
How you doing? Thank you for having me.
No.
Ari, it's first time on the set.
Thank you so much for being here, Jose. You are one of my favorite people.
So we're going to keep things casual today, I'm thinking.
Just, so people who are listening kind of get to know who we are and what we do and kind of explain what this podcast is. Marcus, I think you were an appraiser before Jose. Is that correct?
Yes.
By quite a few years.
Yes.
Yeah, but how did you get into appraisals?
Yeah, I was I was in college, and when I was in college, I was answering an ad to the school paper, and it was asking for a for someone to come on board as doing light accounting work, and I respond, and I met with the person, and the person was a developer. That developer was developing in Long Beach. He was an appraiser, he was a broker, and he was a B1 licensed contractor. Although he was those three things, he elected to go into investing, buying properties in Long Beach, converting them from 5 units down to 4 units. This, as far as his appraisal background, he was an MAI, an SRA. As far as his broker experience, he was a CCIM. So he had all the credentials when it came down to investing, and he picked it up from education. And I would listen to him in the office, and the thing that he talked about more than anything was is his MAI. And so, the more you talk about something, the more you value it. So he seemed like he valued the MAI thing. So I was thinking, oh, that's where he got the bulk of his knowledge. So that's what I went after, and I got into appraising property, and I loved it. But before I got into appraisal, I went out and by around 2000, I got my broker's license, and about a year or 2 year after that, I got my appraisal license, and started appraising property and looking at all different types of real estate assets and talking to different investors, and fell in love with it because it was so unique, and there was so many different approaches in valuing real estate, and different investors were doing in different things. I remember, probably about 10 years ago, or maybe was it a little bit more than that, where people were getting into creative office and how they were doing it. They were converting industrial buildings. Back then, industrial was worth less than office. Office seems like it's the other way around today. But yeah, so people were converting warehouses into office, and even churches into office, and with the stained glass. So I got this, and that was one particular investor doing that. And then I had other investors that were doing multifamily, where they were, relocating tenants, or they were adding value, always trying to find ways to add value. And that's, I just found it fascinating, and that's how I got into the profession.
So, we all have we're all friends outside of this. We
Yes.
all have our personal relationships with each other. But I know that you and Jose have known each other for a long time. How did you guys meet? How are you guys now working together?
Well, this takes me back to junior high. Well, actually, even before that, I take that back. That takes me back to third grade, actually. So in third grade, I developed a relationship with his neighbors and his cousin, and we became good friends. And we became friends through. We got closer in junior high, and then in junior high, uh, his older cousin would bring me around Jose's house, and I knew of him but didn't know him. And my younger sister, very close to his older sister, and they're really good friends. They've been friends since probably, gosh, I don't know,
Kindergarten.
kindergarten. So it's more than family, because family, you don't choose, friends you choose. So that makes it more fascinating. And then we connected in when I was probably my first year in college, and he was just finishing high school, and he came over to my house because he heard that I had a word processor, and the word processor is just a monitor with it was a monitor with a keyboard, and I remember picking it up at Circuit City or something. I don't remember where, and he was, before it was very few people that were typing on a word processor or even a computer. There were more doing it on a typewriter. So he was like, "Oh, I can go to Marcus's and I can make changes on this monitor." And so he came over and he wrote his paper and his senior paper, and that's from that point on. That's when we started developing a relationship together.
Wait, so Jose, how did you get into, appraisals in real estate?
Well, that's a little long story, but I'm gonna try to keep it quick.
Thank you.
Yes. So yeah, back in 2001, I started working full time at the state, but I was on a temporary basis. They call them permanent intermittent. So in 2004, they laid me off for about 3 4 months, or 2005, one of those years. And in between those 3 or 4 months I was laid off, I started working with Marcus, helping him out, doing residential appraisals. And I was just doing some basic data work. And in 2006 or seven, when we lost all our clients, I was still working at the state, so I was doing appraisals part time throughout those 2 or 3 years. And 2000 and yeah, so I lost all the customers. I went, I kept working at the state, and then in 2000 and I don't remember what year it was, 17 or 15 or something, I went back to school to finish my degree so I could get my bachelor's. And I didn't want to come back to work doing appraisals because until I actually had my degree and I was a little more situated. But yeah, no, so I got into it through Marcus. At that point, Marcus was just doing strictly commercial. And it was interesting. Found it interesting. I like the challenge, the different property types, the income, the math part, how to, calculating the value was very interesting to me. So working on different property types. But yeah,
I love it.
so yeah, it goes back, but I had a long break. And then when I came back, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna come back full time. At that point, I left the state after 18 years. I don't know, I guess 5, 6, 7 years later, and yeah, I've been doing it full time since then, though.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is really nice that you guys.
So Ari, what about you? Tell us a little bit about you.
I was a very young mother, and my primary focus for a very long time were my kids. I was a single mom for quite a while, and I, when my kids got into school, I was able to go to work, which was really exciting for somebody that's been staying home for, oh gosh, I don't know, 6, 7 years. But my first job was a paralegal at like a boutique law firm, and we did insurance claims. So
Nice.
it was really interesting, and I love the law. I love rules, and so it was really a good fit for a little bit until I kind of fell out of love with law. And I started working with a girlfriend, and she owns a company, a private aviation company. And it was fun, and it was interesting, and every day was different. And I loved that. But I had to kind of take my career more seriously. And I kind of fell into real estate. Actually, my friend Jack, who was on the podcast earlier, he kind of told me, he's like, you would have a good personality for a real estate agent. And I was inspired by that. I looked into it. I started taking classes, and sure enough, I became a real estate agent. I took classes and passed, and it did take me one fail to pass that test, but it was just 1 point off because they give you your score, and it was painful. So I took it a few days later, and I did it. And the thing I really love about real estate is that there are rules that you have to follow, but you could also be very creative about how to get around those rules.
Yes.
That we were talking about, rebuttals in appraisals, and finding value in places where, maybe the appraiser missed, or maybe, just finding, just being creative in real estate, I think is probably one of my favorite things.
Right. Yeah. No, that's very interesting because, the paralegal background, that definitely could transition into valuation because because in valuation, we do a lot of work for litigation, for estate planning, for estate tax, and all that kind of falls in play on how to communicate with the other side, which is the client, the attorneys.
Absolutely.
So that right, yeah,
Yeah. So one of the things that I really love, Marcus and our children were on the same baseball team, and we kind of had a traumatic experience with that baseball team, and it kind of brought our families very close together. And our boys, they call each other cousins. I mean, your wife is one of my best friends, and you are also one of my best friends. And
yes,
but so kind of we started working together, and I also kind of fell in love with valuation as well, because it is very precise, and there are rules and there's reasons, and it kind of I love that structure of it, but it is really fascinating watch you guys, do your thing, and every day
yes,
is
yes.
also very different, which I kind of need just for myself.
Right. And commercial valuation is just that. It's just where you get involved and you're working on a church one day and then you maybe, and that happens a lot in litigation support because in litigation support, there's a way of appraising property and you have to pick up that ability to service that client. And so because of that, there's only so many people that do that. And because of that, you get to touch on different real estate types. And so it's just always something different. You could be appraising just, something as small as a residential condo, and you could be appraising something as large as a high-rise office building. So it's always different. And so because of that, it keeps my attention.
Every assignment's challenging.
I would say, do you have any funny stories about like an appraisal that you've done, or like something that's super interesting, like how Marcus has done that insane mansion? And
I don't know about funny, but interesting for sure. Though we've appraised a lot of different properties, but one of them that stands out, it was in Santa Barbara. The area is called
Mm.
Montesino, and they call it the Spaceship House. So they built this house that you can't really see it from satellite. It's built underground almost because there's plants on top of it, and it's interesting. So to me that was a very interesting house. It's a big house and there's only like two bedrooms there, and it was to me that was the most probably interesting property that I worked on. That was
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting one.
it's definitely unique, very very unique property.
how do people find you guys, like for the appraisals? Is it just a Google search? Is it usually word of mouth? Is it referrals?
A lot of it comes from word of mouth. And just going to different mixers and just touching elbows and just creating friends with the client.
So also just
Um,
networking
yeah,
and
just networking and just trying to talk to people and it doesn't need to be about work. I mean, you obviously want them to know what you do, but just connecting on a personal level, having a drink with somebody and just talking about life and then you just build something from there. So
Well, what's interesting about that, what Mark is saying now, is that we actually went to a mixer, and so that's the way we got engaged for that spaceship house I was talking about, because it was in your regular single family house that you go appraise, and it's not even your regular $25 million house you appraise, because we've appraised properties from $500,000 to, was it $100 million? I mean, very expensive houses. So, you got people that could praise, these single family homes, but when they're unique, like the spaceship house, it's not just your typical house. You need to, be creative. So we were at a mixer, and I remember Marcus he was engaged at one point to do some house in like Palm Springs, which was
yeah,
um,
that was in Joshua Tree.
a
I
Joshua
remember that
Tree,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then they told him, "Oh yeah, you were gonna appraise that one," and then they're right. By the way, we got this property, and since it was a unique property that not just your typical appraiser could actually work on, you need someone that has some experience, some knowledge, and yeah, that's the way that property was engaged. So
Yeah, I forgot about that story. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, and that particular client was having a difficult time finding somebody to actually appraise it.
that knew how to praise it at
Yeah.
least.
So and we were engaged to appraise a property in Joshua Tree, and that property was it's like it's it if you're looking at it from an aerial standpoint, you won't be able to see it because it blends in with the rocks.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's a rock house, and actually it's on Airbnb today. I actually saw an Airbnb, and it's pretty generous amount per night.
Yeah.
to-
Pretty sure I know
yeah.
what you're talking about, and it's stunning.
Yeah, so that one, and then and he goes, "Oh, I was trying to engage you on that one." So yeah, I remember that. That's actually I forgot about that.
I mean, just because you have the license to appraise, a I don't $10 million house or 20 doesn't mean that you have the
expertise. Yeah.
expertise to actually do it. So you need to have the competency to do it. And so yeah, so that's interesting because that's the way that word of mouth goes. It's like, okay, if you guys appraise these, we've appraised these houses in Hollywood or Beverly Hills, and they're off a mountain, and they have beautiful views, stunning views of downtown LA, and since they know we've appraised property that way, they'll reach out like, hey, you guys appraised this house. Now we have this one. It's a proposed house. It's gonna have a view, and so that's how. Yeah, so the word of mouth on those, at least expensive single families, it's the way that we've been engaged. Well, more Marcus, we've been engaged that way though. Engaged.
Yeah, I've also noticed being a real estate agent, there's, the classes are informative, but they really, the experience of actually being in the field is completely different. And so working with you guys, I feel like I have learned so much about valuation,
Mhm.
and what goes into it, and like actual comps. And, it's easy to just, do a handful of comps, but to actually understand them and why,
Mhm.
it's a whole different, level of understanding and comprehension for that side of it.
Yeah, because as a realtor, sometimes you get, or they're giving opinion of value based on comps that a broker is or an agent is actually looking at, and an appraiser may not even use any of those comparables because
Absolutely.
they don't make any sense to they're definitely not they're not comparable. So yeah, I mean you're learning in that sense too that you're actually going to be able to help your client out when you're representing them. Hey, this is what actually an appraiser will look,
Right.
which is the bank is going to rely on, as opposed to something that I'm just kind of
That could
throwing
just
out there,
generate.
or system generated comps too.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, which I had issues with before with a previous client, where I didn't feel like the comps that was generated by that,
yeah,
Right.
program was accurate. And so I had to do some research myself and
yeah,
found more accurate comps. The real estate shop came about because, so Marcus, I think we were just having dinner at your house,
Yeah.
and you said, I have this idea. What if we started an educational platform, and we can help the public, or even, people in the industry, not only, learn about these niche topics, but also in a way network with each other and be able to, if somebody does have, they are looking for that one property, but they need help with fractional interest. Like we actually know somebody who can help that. And hopefully, like we had John Penner on the podcast, and we know that he can help with that. And at first I was a little like, okay, Marcus. Marcus is the idea man. He always he has ideas for a lot of things. But I mean, you do have great ideas, Marcus.
Well, it was a collaborative of between you and I. We collaborated on this together because I was actually thinking a YouTube channel, and that's it. And she was like, "Marcus, I don't know about a YouTube channel. What about just going on and doing a podcast? Because it will service both."
We could do both.
Yeah, and so I was like, I actually didn't think about that, but yeah, that's so, just the whole thing about having a good team, and we want to provide education to the public, and the public know that there's a resource here. What type of valuations we do a lot of different types of valuations, but there's also there's also other things that you may need. I mean, you need a plumber or a painter or
But also, I wanted this podcast to be for people to realize that real estate more information is better. The more information you have, I mean, the less scary real estate can be. And to have, an appraiser come on and explain certain things. I thought when you were on the podcast with Jack discussing about, what actually adds value to a property, and maybe like if you want your home to get the amount of money or do you want it to sell fast, like where to put that money. Right. I think that is, so interesting for somebody who, might have not any idea how to do things like that. So
yeah, so Marcus does definitely got some good ideas. So
some of them not so
sometimes
great.
I don't like to admit that, and I might just whisper it, to myself. But yeah,
just so you know who we are, Jose's a licensed broker. Marcus is a licensed broker, and Ari is a licensed real estate agent. He's also a certified general appraiser, and I'm also a certified general appraiser with some designations. So this is who is
behind the mics.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why it brings back to one of the reasons why I did not want to come back working with Marcus until I was able to say those things, because I didn't want to have to help a customer out or client out, you gotta have the knowledge and education for it. And that takes, you can't just wake up one day and just say I'm going to do that. So yeah, that's why it took me a couple of years to actually kind of get going here, because I wanted to make sure I had the education, the knowledge to be able to help these client or help Marcus out with these complicated assignments, and not just sit there and look at him work on it. So I wanted to be able to add some value to that. So
yeah,
period.
I love working with you guys. It's really
so Ari is
great.
Learning about retail, office, industrial, all the subtypes underneath that. For example, industrial, you got cold storage, you got distribution, you got contractors yards, you got
we're working on Tesla yards even.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Yes. So yeah, there is a lot of different real estate types.
Well, now I go past an empty building and I'm counting the parking spaces and thinking about how much that adds to the value of that.
And we also provide services for fractional interest. So it's just a lot of different real estate types that we've been doing over the years. And Jose's been doing this for about a decade. I've been doing this over 2 decades. And so you get to see a lot of different real estate types. We also, Jose and I both worked at Colliers International I was there for 7 years, and CBRE for a number of years. And so, every time when you work for a big shop like that, you just see everything come across your desk. So it's been a very exciting journey, and
excited to see where this takes us too.
We're excited to see where this takes us for sure.
So if you are listening and you have a question about anything in regards to real estate, it could be mortgages, appraisals, transactions, whatever, you name it, complicated. You could send us an email at info@therealestateshopca.com. You could also email me, Jose or Marcus, Ari, Jose or Marcus at therealestateshopca.com. And we'd be happy to either, answer it on the podcast or answer it through an email. So,
yeah, excellent. All right. Well, thank you.
No, thank you guys. This has been a fun journey.